Hello, ladies.
Hi.
How's
Hey,
everybody?
How are you?
I'm happy to be with you. And I know Lauren, especially, let's just take a minute to give a shout out to all of our friends and loved ones in Florida. Scary times. And are you doing okay?
Yes, thank you for asking. I am going to be good for the storm, but there's a lot of people further north and on the West Coast who aren't going to be so lucky. So, thinking about everybody in Florida today.
Yeah, we're sending prayers to everybody. Please stay safe. And if you need to evacuate, please go. Please go. It's important. But that's not what we're here to talk about. What we're here to talk about is mastering the secrets to building career boosting connections, something that you both are so good at. And we do these lives fairly often, and we try and give you some of the best tips and the tricks. So, who better than these amazing women? And let's just get right into it. So, first topic is why do we need to network? And I'll just say from my own perspective, I mistook my company that I worked for my community. And I thought that's where all my networking needed to take place. And it wasn't until I became an entrepreneur that I realized how utterly important this is. But what's been your experience? Lauren, let's start with you. What's been your experience with networking? You've got a big one. So, why do you bother? How'd you start? And we can just dive right in.
For sure. So, my network my network is everything. It really has shaped my not just my career but my life the last few years. Since really getting active on LinkedIn and leaning into posting content and growing my network. I've met countless people who, had I just been sharing my company content or one corporate, I don't know, post, we never would have had those insightful and engaging conversations. We connected on things that were beyond just company, corporate, BS. There were real personal things that had us connect. And growing your network and really leaning into getting to know the people in your network and know more about them than just what is their job title, what do they do, and what can they do for me. I think leaning into that and having a lot of conversations where I didn't expect a return on the other side. I just said, who are you and what do you do and how can I support you? And I think leaning into growing my network that way made it very authentic. And now I have an incredible network. There's like 40,000 people in my LinkedIn community. I can post a job ad and get 40 qualified applicants now. I mean, it's just incredible. What really growing your network can do for you.
Jen, how about you?
I mean, I want to say ditto to both of your comments, right? I think, early on in my career, you do think that the company that you work for is your brand. And I think, things have evolved since, we have so much more social media. We've got LinkedIn and networking is, to me, it's pivotal. But it was a learning experience, right? For me to understand that it wasn't just, my job or the company that I started or I worked for. And I had to reach out to people who can help lift you up sometimes when you need that. And I took a really similar approach to Lauren. I reached out to people that I thought people who I thought were really interesting, people who I thought I could learn something from, who could help me expand my network, push my boundaries a little bit. I joined groups and got involved in conversations I never thought I would be involved in. And, I saw this statistic written a couple of years ago, I think it was by MIT, that said, if you expand your network just by 10%, you're something like 6 times more likely to receive job offers or promotions.
That's a good one.
10%. It doesn't seem that hard or that tough. And I think the hardest part for me in the beginning was I can be an extrovert when I'm sort of in a comfortable situation, but I can also at times be an introvert. So to really kind of push myself outside of my comfort zone and be like, hey, do you want to be my friend? Do you want to connect?
So that's
pretty cool.
That's a perfect segue into how do you build your network? And I learned a few things. And when I was shoved out of the nest, I realized how important it would be to make contacts that were going to be aligned with what I wanted to do. And I think a lot of people look at networking as icky or hard or onerous. And I really changed the way I thought about it, and I made it more fun. And one of the best people out there that does this is my friend Samantha McKenna. And she has this knack of like going to their LinkedIn profile or their Instagram or whatever, finding some cool details about them, and then sending them a message. And their open rate was really high, or her open rate's really high. And she gets these incredible connections because she did her homework. So, I mean, it doesn't take real long to look someone up and to say something nice like, hey, you went to Boulder, I went to Boulder, or, you know, some relative of mine lives in your town, or whatever it is. Just saying you pay attention to someone really does carry a little bit of weight, and it makes it a little bit easier. And when you start saying something nice about someone, they immediately are like, oh, this isn't a pitch slap. This is someone who actually took the time to get to know me. So what are your thoughts on building networking? Jen, you're laughing. Start with you.
Thanks for that. So like when you said pitch, I went like mentally, I went in this different direction, right? I was still with you. I just like, there was the professional version and then the not, and I went to the, but I mean, I think it's the, when I reach out to people and I ask, I think I'm naturally curious, right? I'm naturally curious about people and how they got to where they're at. And so I generally lead with that. And I don't do a lot of spamming with people that I reach out to. Almost everybody that I've connected with, I've either been introduced to or I've reached out, and I understand what it is that they do. You know, so if they're in the HR tech space, I understand what it is they do. If they're in the product development or marketing, you know, space, then I find out about who they are. And I think, you know, expanding my network and reaching out to people and seeing the synergies are really good. And I also lead with, again, I think both of you said this, like, I'm very interested in how I can help other people. I'm very interested in their story and sort of how we can connect. And, you know, you guys have heard me say this on other lives, but sort of my internal story is, you know, like my parents and my grandparents always used to leave an empty place at the dinner table. And that was for the people that they hadn't met yet. And so when I was growing up, that just became sort of my mindset. And so I look at networking the same way. You know, you have really intentional networking where, you know, you need to meet people like Lauren, and you have to meet hiring managers, and you need to maybe make some contacts with companies or the people who work in companies that you're interested in working at, but to make them authentic introductions. And so again, like for me, I always leave a couple hours out of my week to accept people and connections and requests that I don't know, because you never know who you're going to meet somebody and how they can change your life, you know. And you think of like how, like, you know, Walt Disney got started, or Oprah Winfrey and Gayle King, you know, that was a networking thing, you know. It was a connection. It was leveraging your network. And you think of, you know, how you go from here to here. Sometimes it's a person you met a couple of years ago and you weren't sure the why behind it. And then it reveals itself and you're like, oh my God, that's the why. I didn't see it right away, but I see it now.
I'm giggling because I can hear your dogs in the background, and I love her dogs. They're fantastic. So I kind of wish I was on the floor with them. But
sorry, everybody.
No, they're awesome. At some point, they need their own little video. So Lauren, you have a huge network, and many people will say, you know, I don't know how to maintain all these relationships, or that seems like it's hard, or that feels onerous. How do you handle it? What do you do?
Yeah, so I mean, I have a huge network. Do I know every single person in my network? No, let's be honest. I also have more followers than I have actual connections. I want to talk about something Jennifer said that I think is important.
Yeah.
When you're building with intention, especially building your network with intention, when you have those actual connections, you still have a limit to 30,000 first connections on LinkedIn. And I do think that your first level connections really do dictate who your content goes out to. So I think it's very important. Your first level connections need to be people who are going to engage with your content, and they need to be people who your content is relevant for. So I am super specific when I am connecting with people in my network. I will follow you. You can follow me. We can engage. But if you are not somebody who is my ICP, which we can talk about that if you want to, but if you're not somebody who's my ICP, I might not make you a first level connection. It doesn't mean I don't care about your content or what you're doing, but I just think that's so important that Jennifer talked about building your network with intention.
Yes.
You want to have some people from HR roles. You want to have some recruiters. You don't want to have only recruiters. You want to have some people from C-suite. You don't want to have only C-suite. You want to connect with other job seekers. You don't want to have only other job seekers. Do you see this connection? Like, you have to have a wide variety, and you have to be intentional about building that network. And then the other thing I want to talk about, Lindsay, when you're talking about really building this network, one of the biggest tips I have, I get this from Darren McKee. I know people are watching. You want actionable tips. Okay. We want actionable things we can go home with. And this is something I do. I block time 3 days a week to look through who's viewed my profile. And you can see who's viewing your profile. You can see the people who, for me, I care about the people who might be hiring, the people who might be a potential match for one of the jobs I'm recruiting for. I look through that. I am intentional about spending time in that section, because if they've already found me, they already know who I am. That conversation is going to be easier to open that door. So I want you to think about the people who are already looking at your page. Those are already, like, they're not warm, but they're kind of warm. They found you. They're going to be warmer than
looked. Yeah.
Right. So shout out to Darren McKee, but I spend a lot of time focusing on that. And then his tip is exactly what you said about Samantha McKenna, and spending time and really showing them you know them. Who are they? What have they done? Why are you excited about even meeting them? Take 10 minutes, send a really personalized note. And the results speak for themselves. It's really insane. But when you grow your network with intention, it's so much easier to grow a robust network and have people who will really come to bat for you when you need them.
So here's a question that I get asked a lot.
One quick thing before we do, because it's about what you're saying about doing it intentionally. And I kind of learned the hard way. And we're not going to say when, but let's say, maybe not super recently, but recently enough. And, you want to plant the seeds and you want to garden, right? To me, that's like what, Lauren, you're talking about, networking with intention. But you may not be looking for a job right now. You may love your job. You may be like, I am never going to leave. And that's awesome. But, we know that like in 2025, over 90% of companies are anticipating there's going to be some sort of reduction in force, right? And that doesn't mean that it's going to be like 100 people. It could be like one person, right? But you don't want to be that one person that didn't garden and you don't know a Lauren, right? Or you don't know a hiring manager. Like, you don't want to just introduce yourself to those people when you need them. You want to have them in your connections, and you want to nurture those relationships, and you want to garden those relationships, because you don't just want to be like, oh my God, like I've done so great in this other area, but now I don't have anybody that I can fall on or that I can lean on because I didn't nurture recruiter relationships, maybe because you didn't need them at that point in your life, right? But you do. You really, really, really do. So I think it's to do it with intention, to garden and connect with people before you think you need to make that connection.
That was perfect. You reminded me of something in the category of actionable tips, and this is a challenge for anyone listening. Go write 3 unsolicited recommendations of people that either you worked for, who worked for you, who was a business partner, who was some kind of a colleague. Go and write them a recommendation that would make them cry. I don't mean a bad way. I mean happy tears, because that would be terrible. But write them a recommendation that would really make them go, oh my gosh, I didn't know that was the effect I had on this person. And then what's going to happen is they're going to turn right around and do that for you. So 2 things. 1, you're going to get a recommendation, which we all need. They shouldn't be older than a year, ideally 6 months or less. But it's also, it looks good on you that you went and did that. And when someone sees that you recommended someone, they're like, well, who's that person? And then they come looking at you. It's goodness all around. It's putting good out into the world. It's taking care of other people. But that's an easy thing to do. And that's a really good segue into how do you nurture your existing network? I mean, that is a way to looking at who's been in your network for a while. Who haven't you talked to in a bit? Write something nice. They might come knocking. Lauren, anything to add?
Sorry, trying to get off mute. I think that giving recommendations is important. I also think that there's a few softwares out there. I'm not going to plug any of them. I'm not getting paid to. I'm just kidding. But there's a few softwares out there where you can actually keep up with your LinkedIn connections that will remind you to engage with people, things like that. Or you could just be old school, create like a Google Sheet and whatever works for you. Claire has some amazing things for this. Claire, you should talk about that
Claire
one day.
Davis.
But Claire has some amazing tools for this, but there's just some really awesome tools out there if you want to make sure you're keeping up and staying engaged with your network. So my biggest advice is that use AI to help you. Don't use it to replace you, but use it to stay on top of things, to help you know when and where to be, what you're falling behind with. It's really great at helping me with time management, understanding where I'm lacking for certain weeks. I like to put in kind of what I thought I was going to do versus my actual output, and use AI to help me with that. But don't use AI to replace you or try to like be you on LinkedIn. That's going to hurt you more than it's going to help you growing your network. And I know some people are looking for an easy button, but if you are watching today, I will tell you there is not an easy button.
No.
And if you just think there will be an easy button, you are going to be sorely disappointed in LinkedIn.
And hey, by the way, we can tell. When you're using the easy button to make a comment on somebody's post and it's regurgitating what you just wrote, most of the time it's wrong. So, well, maybe it's not wrong, but I've had lots of people that are, I think I gave a shout out. I don't know what it was. It was something funny, personal. And it was like really insightful perspective. And I'm like, no, it wasn't. It was about my dog, or it was, and so we can tell. So,
or somebody made a post about how they were grieving a loss, and then somebody like AI generated, ha 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 ha, like what?
Did this just happen? It did.
Yeah, it just happened. It might be fresh.
We don't want to say who. It happened.
We see you. So, Jen, thoughts on nurturing your network? Any other tips you'd add?
I have a myriad of tips. No, I mean, I think it's, I kind of go in like waves. I'm not like an everyday ninja user of LinkedIn, right? I mean, I try to leverage it so that it can help and it can grow, but I still go back to, for me, it's about being intentional. And one of the things I just made note of when you guys were talking is, for all of you guys who have not backed up your LinkedIn, back up your LinkedIn. You get it. It gives you a spreadsheet of just in case anything happens, it gives you all your connections, and you can, if something happens and your account gets hacked and LinkedIn blocks you, just back them up. It can't hurt to have all of that information at hand. But that's actually one of the tools that I use to see when's the last time I've engaged with somebody. And then, there are some people maybe that I don't follow or I don't engage with, or I disconnect from, just if I happen to look at a post and maybe we're not always aligned, I'm like, yeah, no, nope, not today. But I mean, I try to really be mindful about my connections, and what Lauren said about you're accepting every request, you can't do that because your first round of connections. But I try to really be, again, intentional. That's like my word of the day with my connections. And I check in with people and I make sure that they're okay. And there was a woman that I used to work with a few years ago, and she made a really great comment on one of my posts. And so I checked in with her, and she, was not having a great time. And so it felt good that I could still reach out to this person that I hadn't talked to or I hadn't seen in several years and be like, hey, I'm still here. I care. What can I do to help? Because, you never know what someone else is going through. And I think networking ties into that. Is it helps you as much as it can professionally as it can personally. And I've had some personal connections that have helped me professionally, and vice versa. And so again, I think it's just about being mindful and not just having the easy button. Although I do think there are some tools, who I'm not going to name at this exact moment, that I think can help you with that, as long as you're really specific in the narrative and your ask and what it is that you're looking for. One thing, especially for job seekers who are networking and they're looking for jobs, I discovered a tool, and you guys probably know this, and I'm probably the last one to the party. So if it's just me, just humor me for 2 seconds. But, when you go on your LinkedIn page and, you have the search bar, right? So you hit home, you go to the search bar, and then you can put in, jobs that have been posted this week, or companies that are hiring this week. And it lists all the different people and all the different recruiters and hiring managers who have posted jobs. Maybe they didn't do it on LinkedIn, or they didn't do it on Indeed or whatever, and then you can use the advanced tool, and you can get really granular, and you can start creating custom searches looking at. So like Lauren, when you posted last week, you were looking for a VP of, I'm sorry, I can't remember who, because you do such a great job of that, of posting opportunities. And I think that's so important. And people can aggregate that on LinkedIn, and it can pull the ones from today, or the ones from the last 3 days, or the last 7 days. And I was like, that's such an amazing tool, and also a great tool to network, right? If you're looking for, in your business, strategic partners, you could put in, I'm looking for this kind of strategic partner, and those companies can pop up, and then you can, call through them and then send a note to the companies that you think could be strategic partners. I mean, that is also networking, right?
It's super smart. And if you aren't paying for Sales Navigator, that is a great way to do it. And Sales Navigator is expensive. So yeah, if you're not doing that, that's an alternative.
And if you're really quick, Lindsay, if anybody's watching and you want to export your contacts, like Jennifer said, all you have to do is go to your account settings, go to data privacy, and export your data. And then you can pick contacts, you can do everything, but that's exactly how you do what Jen was saying. It does take some time if you have a large contact list, so just know that. But that's how you do what Jen said. You can play back the replay and have exact steps on how to do it.
Yeah, it's not difficult. It's actually quite simple. And there's also, you should check your data privacy, because there's some funky settings. I posted about it a couple weeks ago that LinkedIn is defaulting to. So they're collecting your data. They're doing lots of things. So we love you, LinkedIn, but don't love that. So, I mean, we all met through networking. We all met through referrals. And lucky for me, I loved you both immediately. And let's talk about first impressions, because we get invited to lots of coffee chats. We get invited to lots of messages, or, I want to introduce you to so-and-so. What are just your thoughts on first impressions? Because virtual first impressions are obviously different than in-person ones. So how do you ensure that you're showing up and making a good one? Either one of you.
I mean, I can go first. I think they matter so much. I had somebody refer someone to me this week that I got on a call with, and I'm expecting to love this person from the referral.
Right.
And I think the moment I got on the call, it was just dead and flat. And it was almost like, I think the person expected the referral to carry all of the weight, and it was for a job. It was for an interview purpose. And really just getting on the call, and the first impression, me having such high hopes, and it just really being so flatline. And I get it. I mean, people have bad days, people have bad moments. I do think I'd have another conversation with this person, but immediately, not only did it make me kind of question the person I was on the video with, but it made me question the person who referred this person to me as well. So I think first impressions really matter. And if it's a referral, it matters on the person who's referring you. It's going to go both ways.
I had the exact same experience, Lauren. And I had someone I really love refer me someone, and the conversation was so flat and so one note. And I think you guys know me. I'm pretty animated. I like to make fun of things and have a good sense of humor. I could get nothing out of this person. And I was like, why are you here? Oh, Lord, this is rough. Jen, how about you?
I mean, it's sort of like, when you're single and your friends are like, oh my God, I've got someone I want to connect with. That's like a blind date. And you get to the blind date and you're like, this is bad. This is what you thought? Like, really? Well, that's kind of insulting. So, I mean, I think there have been that. And I mean, listen, like I am always going to err on the side of showing up prepared. Always. No matter who it's with, no matter who it's for. You know, that is just how I roll, right? I think it's important to know who it is that you're going to be spending some time with. I think, looking at their LinkedIn or other things that they've posted or talked about, and if they don't, I mean, I've literally said in the first 2 minutes, like, listen, like, if you just don't want to be here, like, that's totally okay. But if we are going to be here, like, I need you to engage, because the only thing I have that's really valuable is my time and how I can control that. Right. And I mean, controlling your word and being a good person. But I mean, I think that's important. And I have no bandwidth for it anymore. I'm like, if someone doesn't show up or they show up and they're not prepared, I'm over it.
Yeah. Can we have like a little PSA for if you schedule time with someone and you can't make it and a little bit ahead of time, do them a solid and apologize, because they are reserving that time for you. And likely we can't repurpose that time for someone else. Might be able to do other things that we're working on, but it's kind of messes with your day.
Well, and Lindsay, to your point with that, I've had some people, I call them habitual reschedulers, who they are great network connections. I really enjoy engaging with them, but they've asked for time on my calendar, so they got the link. And now they just reschedule on the link. Every 2 weeks, there's a new appointment that pops up, and every time I know that appointment's going to be rescheduled.
Well, and you host a show, I host a show. We've both been there when a guest like says, "Oh, hey, just so you know, can't make it tomorrow," and you're like, "Tomorrow?" Because there's a whole domino effect.
Oh, you mean my Friday this week because my guest was in Tampa? Okay.
Well, that's out of their control. So
I know, but now I'm like, Friday this week.
I know someone who might be available. She's sitting to your right.
So I want to just say the habitual reschedulers, right? I mean, I think like I'm gonna throw myself under the bus for just a minute. So there have been 2 people in the last 3 weeks that I have had to reschedule, and I'm not exaggerating, 4 times. Like, I am not the rescheduler person, but I'm sure if they're listening to this, they're like, yeah, girl, they are talking about you. And these 2 people would be absolutely right. But it's not intentional, but I think you need to own it, and you've got to apologize and be like, listen, here's what happened. I don't want to get into the details, but it's just like the universe keeps intercepting why we, haven't been able to get together. But I do think, respecting someone's time and respecting someone's calendar is really important. And I do want to circle back, Lindsay, you asked earlier, like, how do I actively engage with people, and how do I maintain my network? And one of the reasons I think I try to maintain it and nurture it is I read a statistic, I don't know, a few years ago, something that said, like, if you try to maintain your network and engage in some way, you're 2.5 times more likely to find new opportunities. And new opportunities can be defined as a career, as a strategic partner, as a new connection, or as the introduction. And so I think, if there's people that are in your network, but you're not engaging with, it's okay to like quietly disengage and leave that spot open, for somebody else. There's nothing wrong with that. Sometimes, your job and your network and everything, it needs to pivot, and that's okay. So that's all I had to say to that part.
No, good one. My landscapers have decided this is the perfect time to show up, so I'll be in and off, or on and off.
Away, so
oh, poor numbers.
Sorry about that.
So for those folks that are not entrepreneurs, let's give them a little nudge, because I think, and I speak from experience, I think they take their networks for granted. So what would you urge them to do today to get them out of that complacency? I'm calling it complacency.
I would say go reconnect with 5 people that you've worked with previously that you don't work with anymore. just reconnect with them. Where are they at? Where are they at in their careers? Does it make sense to even still be connected with them? Some of it's not just rebuilding or rekindling a relationship right now. It's understanding how your network needs to grow and evolve. And what are these people doing now? Are they somebody who in 5 or 10 years, it's a relationship that's worth me nurturing? So go through your network, see who you have. I definitely, when I was first starting to grow my network before that, LinkedIn was a placeholder, right? It was a place I was connected to a bunch of people from college, and it just held my resume. I didn't need to be connected to all those people from college. So prune through who you have, the older connections, and just really be intentional.
Jen, anything you want to add to that one? What nudge would you like to give our corporate friends?
I mean, I love the suggestion of reaching out to 5 people, right? I mean, and that is something no one would. I am sometimes a very shy person, and so when I go to networking events, I'm always like, I just have to talk to 5 people, and it's success. And it can't be 5 people I know, and people up, and I have to introduce myself. And so, I mean, and I do try to do that in networking. I mean, even today, right? On LinkedIn, I try to reach out to 5 people that I think are interesting every day. And you know, it's not just always about business, right? Sometimes it's someone who has written a book and I thought the book was really interested, or someone who made a post that wasn't in my network. And I was like, hey, I really loved what you wrote. And this is, you know, really inspired me and I'd love to connect with you, right? Or sometimes there's people I see on TV that are being interviewed and I was like, they're really interesting. What's the worst case that this is going to happen? They're just going to say no and be like, weirdo. And I mean, you would be surprised at the number of people that I have in my network that they've either written an article or they've written a book or they've been on TV or the radio. And I'm like, I have to know the person, or they have podcasts and I'm like, you're so interesting. I want to know you. I feel like there's some opportunities here. I'd love to know more about you. I mean, it's like, the nudge is be curious, and there's what's the worst that's going to happen? They don't accept it.
Yeah.
Okay, so there's 5 more. There's like
I love that you said that. I love that you said that, because if you ask any author, any podcast host, or anybody that sticks their neck out and gets published, I'm telling you, if somebody says to me, I just caught your show, it meant so much to me what you said, it resonated, like that is a content creator's dream. If someone said to me, Lindsay, I just bought your book and I love it, and I especially love chapter whatever, oh, we're friends for life. Like that is meaningful, because I stuck my neck out there to do it. And if you're going to tell me that you liked it, so brownie points for that. Anytime you're going to grow that way is smart. I will say this, what we didn't talk about is what I view, and I think you probably would agree, how you grow on LinkedIn is not reaching out and making those connections. It's in the comments. And that's how you show intention and wisdom and lifting others up. Yeah. So thoughts on growing in the comments? Am I right?
100%. When people complain to me that they're not growing, I think that they're not commenting. If you're only worried about growing yourself, you're not going to grow very tall. But yeah, I think that you have to grow and you have to want to help other people grow. And the number one way to be seen and really provide new conversation is in the comments of other people's posts.
Agreed. So we would be terribly remiss if we didn't remind you that we have our upcoming boot camp this month is October 24th and 25th. Jen, is it a wait list right now? People can
There's a wait list right now. People can apply for the wait list. We're toying with the idea of maybe doing 2 separate sessions. So don't let the wait list deter you. So you can add your name to that, and then we'll see how many there are. And if it makes sense to do, a second, then we'll do that. Or they can sign up for the one in November.
So all of us are a part of this boot camp, along with all the other lives that you're going to be seeing in the coming days. It's a group of phenomenally smart leaders and coaches who are the best at what they do. The past boot camps have been this incredible white glove experience for the people who've attended them. And if you don't believe me, just go look at the testimonials on the website. I know we've got Andrew in the room who's attended one of our boot camps, and he's a huge supporter of us. So shout out to the Data Cowboy. But if you have any questions about what we do or about if it's right for you, just reach out to us. We're happy to schedule some time. I think there's a link that we can share with you to set up a 15-minute call. And maybe we could throw the link to the actual boot camp. She already did. Beautiful. So that's all. What else do you have to add?
Your request is your request is my answer. You know what I'm trying to say? I'm just going to stop at that.
Yeah. Your wish is my command. Yeah, I got you.
That's what I was going to say. Yeah, right. What you said. Good God. No, I mean, I just think it's really important for people to understand really the power of networking. It's you have to garden. Networking is gardening. It's planting seeds. It's watering them. It's having conversations. It's engagement. It's when you comment on someone's post, if it touched, something in you, make a comment because someone spent a lot of time thinking about that. And if it resonated with you, then you should comment. And that, is going to help you increase your connections and your networks, but it matters, right? Because you never know when you are going to need that person, and you don't want to need that person when you're sort of facing an emergency, right? You want to get ahead of it. And like, listen, we're all heading toward a digital age, whether we like it or we don't like it. And not nurturing your digital footprint on LinkedIn isn't going to help you because you are your brand. And if you don't have your brand on LinkedIn and you don't network, what does your banner say about you? What does your title say about you?
If you don't have a banner, I mean, we see that.
We see that all the time. And that also is part of networking. Like if you don't have things that are interesting and people come across your profile and they're like, oh, well, that, like you don't want to get the like meh, right?
Or a 10-year-old picture when you had hair and now you don't, because we've had those moments. We did have a question from the Data Cowboy himself. It said, what is the best way to make sure your digital eminence efforts, blogs, videos, etc., are seen by your target audience?
I mean, if they're your target audience, I mean, you want to create, like, I create lists of people that I'm interested in reaching out to. And that maybe is just my way of doing things, but it keeps me organized and it keeps me on task. And if you are sending out connections and people aren't responding to you, then you need to reframe how you're requesting the connection, right? You need to reframe the ask. And it's sort of like if you're getting a lot of interviews and you're not getting the job, so you're doing something great to get the interview, but if you're not closing the interviews and it's happened 3 or 4 times, then you've got to kind of figure out the what keeps happening where you're always a bridesmaid and never a bride, right? Or a groomsman and never a groom, whatever the case may be. But I think, I found, and this is just for me personally, I don't like it when people send me 3 paragraphs and they want oh my God, I don't have the bandwidth for that. You need to tell me what you want, what you need, be charming in 300 characters or less.
That's a good rule of thumb. Or don't tell them what you need right away. Work on building the relationship first.
Sure.
Yeah. The pitch slap is.
Elizabeth had a great comment. So smart. Your network is your net worth. Yeah.
Hey, Liz Taylor.
That is a very smart comment.
She's right. Lauren, were you going to add anything? How do you make sure you're visible to the right people?
I was just going to say one of the tips that I like to use that might help Andrew asked, right? I can't see the comments for some reason. You guys might see I post polls often. And typically I post a poll because I'm creating content around that topic. And the way people vote help me see where my ICP is leaning. And I can go, because I posted the poll, I can see the people who voted which way. And I can kind of target them with certain messages now. So I asked in a poll last week who eats lunch at their desk. 38% of people eat lunch at their desk more than 4 days a week. I did that on purpose. I'm going to target those people with certain messaging coming up. And there's things behind that. But if you post certain content and you ask questions, you can learn from your audience and you can get your content in front of the right people.
You reminded me of my friend Derek Strocon just did a post today, and he said, if you're suffering from a condition called fold, fear of leaving your desk, you need to get up and get out. And it's a very clever post. It's probably one of his better ones, but I thought that was really, really funny. And that is a real thing. People think if I leave my desk, something could happen. I could miss something. Someone will think I'm not working hard. No, it's important.
I'm that way for if I leave my computer, I will need it. Yeah. And it's just how it always works for me. I know everybody's like, you can do it from your cell phone. No, there's some things I need my laptop for. I don't know that password. It's saved on this baby. If I leave my laptop behind, I will need it. So
you suffer from fold.
Fear of fear of leaving computer.
I might have a little bit of both, but I will tell you, like, for me personally, getting up, leaving my desk, walking around, stretching my legs. Now, I'm not saying I might not have like my laptop tucked with me in case of emergency.
No,
or whatever, but I have my phone, and I do think that's really important to like kind of clear the cobwebs. But Lauren, I love the idea of the survey. I love the idea of the polls and of voting. And I always think sense of humor goes a long way on LinkedIn. Great. Not everything you post has to be, very serious. There has to be, full of, juicy nuggets. Sometimes you can share a story. Now, let's not be confused. It is not Instagram. It is not Facebook. It's not Twitter. It is not the place for manifestos, right? But interesting stories and analogies and things like that, I think, are also great ways to engage and grow your audience. It's and someone who I love the people and thank all of you who do this, who put your marketing wins out there. And in some cases, the marketing fails because A, they make me laugh, and B, I'm like, oh, I might have been thinking about that. Like, note to self, don't do that. Like, I love that. For me personally, I love when people bring the authenticity.
Humor goes such a long way. And I think especially when you can laugh at yourself and you can share lessons, people learn from them. And, Lauren, you and I have talked about this many times, but there is so much a desire to connect with people. And my friend Joanna Lohman coined this term, the professional. It's the combination of personal and professional. And when you share a little bit of your personal, it really goes a long way. And people want to connect with you. They understand you better. They know how to support you better. So anything you want to share on that? Because we all have pretty robust personal lives. And we all have a lot that we do.
I think that there's a lot of ways that you can connect with your personal life and your professional life. As an entrepreneur, I'm more willing to share, I think, more about my personal life than some people in corporate settings. Also, if you're in a corporate role and you don't want to share your personal life, you don't have to. I think that's the other thing. But share what you're comfortable with is, I think, the best advice. And just know that sometimes by sharing something a little bit personal, you could open a door you never knew. I made a post a few days ago. It was my dad's birthday. I posted about how my dad was diagnosed with non-Hodgkin's lymphoma when I was 16. He's still here today. Praise Jesus. But I made a post about that. And there were people who commented, my brother was just diagnosed, or this gives me so much hope because I have this rare cancer, and things like that. I mean, things that you would never experience or really learn about other people. And things like that do make people pay attention, right? So share what you're willing to share. Would I have shared something like that 2 years ago? Probably not. But as I've gotten more comfortable sharing content over the last year and sharing more and more about my personal life, it was something that I felt I needed to share. And I just think be open to the possibilities. And if somebody asks for a conversation, unless it absolutely seems like it would be completely a waste of your time, be open to having a 10 or 15-minute chat. It's not going to hurt. In the worst case, you're going to get on the call. You're going to say, and here, Jennifer, I'm just going to use you as an example to teach somebody right now. If you're on the call and Jennifer is not it, you say, Jennifer, you know what? I really appreciated meeting with you today. I had some things come up. I need to run right now. I'd love to support you in the future. Send me a DM on how I can support you. Okay. Thanks so much. In the call. What's the worst thing that's going to happen, y'all? Nothing. Just take the call. Jennifer might have been the best person you met all year, which is what happened to me when I took my call with Jennifer. So take the call.
I mean,
Like,
yeah,
you could be on the call with someone who could literally change your life and be that person who will support you, who will cheer for you, who will point you in the right direction, but you have to be willing to have the call. So have the call, know how to get yourself out of an uncomfortable situation, but be willing to be in an uncomfortable situation so that if it's amazing, you were there, you lived it, and you came out the other side that much better.
I think staying open is so important. And some of the best opportunities that have come my way in the last 2.5 years have been a result of that. And how I found Jen was a referral from someone who referred me to coaching a C-suite. And Jen said, do you know anybody that has a good LinkedIn presence who can help me with my boot camp? And next thing I know, I'm connected with her and I'm doing a boot camp. And now working with her directly. So like none of that would have happened had we not been networking. And I was on Lauren's show, which was like a total honor. So amazing. And that was another one. So you never underestimate what these connections can do. So pay attention to your people, show them some love, and make some time in your day for it. Because everybody says they're so busy, they're so flat out. You just need to prioritize what's important. And if you put an hour in your day to nurture your connections wherever they are, do it.
You know, one thing that I think that you said that is important is you know, like you never know like who you're going to meet and what are you going to get? What are you going to get out of the connection, right? And it's not necessarily like what are you going to get out of the connection, but what are we going to get, you know, out of the connection? And the you know, like when we wanted to start this boot camp and everything that sort of transpired from it, and you know where entry was, and you know like this, and then it was like this, and then it was like, and so like you just never know, and that's because of the people that I've met through networking and having conversations. And the one thing I did want to talk about just briefly, and I didn't run this by you before, so you might Lindsay has the power to mute me because she's hosting. And she might. But one thing that I think is important for all of us and everyone who is attending is to lead with kindness, to lead with respect. And, you know, Lauren, you had a post, I don't know, a few weeks ago, and there was someone who was like, you know, being a jerk. And I was like, okay. So, like, you don't know this, but like I went behind the scenes and DM'd this person. I was like, why? Stop. No, you didn't need me to be your protector because you can protect yourself. But first of all, I have zero tolerance for that. Like we can agree to disagree. Whoever that person is, or the person I haven't met yet, we can agree to disagree. But I think lead with kindness, lead with respect, and don't troll people. If you don't like what they said,
the words out of my mouth. Don't be a troll.
Don't troll people. If you don't like what they said, then stop following them.
Well, and if you're going to go there, if you're going to be a troll, recognize that everybody's watching. And if you're going to try and take somebody down publicly, we see it. Is that the vibe and the energy we want in our company? Is that what's going to get you hired? I'd argue no.
So
it can be damaging.
I said thank you.
Oh, I mean, like I wasn't even going to say anything, but I was, and you know, like Lindsay had it happen. We've all had it happen, and sometimes, you know, there are times you have to draw a line in the sand, and you've got to be like, yeah, like I don't really want to have a throwdown over this right now, but I will, because you know what you're saying is problematic to either me personally or to my company or someone that I work with, and I take that very seriously. Brand integrity and what you say and standing behind what it is and your product or service is important. But again, you know, like back to the networking thing, it all sort of ties into your messaging is important and how you comment with people and how you interact, because the more positivity that you give out, the more you're going to get.
Yeah.
Well, I can't see any more questions because my feed broke. So if there are any questions, Valeska, if you would tell us, that would be so great. Can you two eyes see if there's anybody else asking questions?
Let me look one second.
Okay.
I don't see any new ones, but I will look again.
It's not loading for me.
Yeah, mine's stuck. I don't know whether if it's LinkedIn or if it's us, but regardless, I think we said the things we wanted to say. Is there anything you would add?
I would just say show up as yourself. Build your network your way. People say use LinkedIn your way, but the times that LinkedIn worked best for me were when I did the things that I wanted to do and I stopped listening to what a million other people said. And don't get me wrong, like there's some great advice. We're giving you good advice. Take the good advice. But if there's something and you're like, you know what, that piece of advice doesn't feel right for me, don't take it. Do it your way. Not everything is going to work for every single person. And sometimes when I leaned into the thing that somebody said that won't work, it really did. And maybe it just didn't work for them.
Yeah. I think that's a really good point. And I think when you make it yours and you stick to your personality, I have friends that have their own signature things that they do on LinkedIn all the time. People love it. They come to expect it. They look to that person. One of my friends, Melissa Cohen, we call her the good witch of LinkedIn. You know, she puts out a LinkedIn Nuggets thing every Friday, and it's like 5 things that people in her network have said that have moved her. And I just think it's a lovely way to shine the light on others. That's totally her gig, and nobody would take that away from her. Everyone knows it's hers, but she made it hers. So figure out what's yours and make it yours. Jen, any final comments from you?
I mean, just ditto to everything that you said. And again, it just goes with like leading with authenticity. I think there are certainly best practices that can be followed, but you know, you're not trying to be a version of someone else. You're trying to be the best version of yourself. And I think, you know, your best version is good enough, and, you know, you are enough, and you don't need to try to copy somebody else to be better, to be a better version of you. Would be my advice. So I don't have anything else. I don't see any other questions. So I just want to say thanks to everybody who joined. We really appreciate you giving your time. We hope that this was good and warranted. And Lindsay already talked about our career accelerator and the wait list, but you can put your name onto it. And if we decide to add another one, or you can sign up for the November one, we'd love to have you.
That's right. Don't sleep on this. If you have a job, if you're a job seeker or you know a job seeker, we would love to help them. The value we brought in the last boot camps has been extraordinary, and we want you to be well equipped all the way around. It's not just a resume. It's not just a talk with a recruiter. It's not just your LinkedIn. It's a combination of things. And we know that this really leveled up the game. So we're pretty pumped to be a part of it. So cheers, ladies.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks, you guys. So great.